Commander Jake Sullivan stood on the observation deck of New Boston Colony, watching the morning sunrise paint the sky orange and purple. The colony had been his home for 3 years now, and he loved the peaceful mornings before the mining crews started their daily work. Today felt different, though, and he could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. The communication system crackled to life, breaking the silence. Chief Communications Officer Lisa Morgan spoke with urgency in her voice. "Jake, we are receiving distress signals from Haven Prime and Terra Nova colonies. The signals cut off mid-transmission, and we cannot re-establish contact." Jake felt his stomach drop. Haven Prime was only 2 light years away, and Terra Nova was even closer. If both colonies had gone silent at the same time, it could only mean one thing. Attack. He rushed to the command center where Lisa was frantically trying to reach other human settlements. Her face was pale and her hands shook as she worked the controls. "We have lost contact with 8 colonies in the past hour." The last transmission from Haven Prime mentioned strange ships in orbit before the signal died. Jake activated the colony-wide alert system. All residents were to report to emergency stations immediately. New Boston Colony housed 40,000 people, including families with children. Most were miners and engineers who had come here seeking a better life among the stars. The defensive coordinator, Ryan Blake, entered the command center carrying data tablets and weapon diagnostics. "Our shields are at full power and all defensive. Batteries are online. However, our weapons were designed to handle pirates and raiders, not a full-scale military assault." Jake nodded grimly. The human colonies had always been peaceful settlements focused on mining rare minerals and establishing new homes. They had basic defenses, but nothing that could withstand a serious attack from advanced alien technology. Lisa suddenly straightened. At her station. "Jake, I am picking up multiple contacts entering the system. The ships are massive and using technology I have never seen before. Their energy signatures are off the charts. On the main display screen, dozens of triangular vessels appeared. Each ship was the size of a small city, and they moved with purpose toward New Boston Colony. The aliens had found them. The lead ship began broadcasting on all frequencies. The message was cold and mechanical. "Humans of New Boston Colony you have been marked for extinction. Your species spreads too quickly and threatens the natural order of the galaxy. Surrender now, and your deaths will be swift." Jake felt anger rise in his chest. These aliens, whoever they were, had already destroyed 8 human colonies. Thousands of innocent people were dead, and now they wanted to kill everyone on New Boston, too. He would not let that happen without a fight. He opened the colony-wide communication channel. "This is Commander Sullivan. We are under attack by hostile alien forces. All civilians must evacuate to the underground mining tunnels immediately. Security. Teams report to defensive positions. We will hold them off as long as possible." The colony erupted into controlled chaos as people followed emergency procedures. Families grabbed essential supplies and headed for the tunnel entrances. The mining tunnels extended deep underground and connected to other colonies. If people could reach them, they might survive, even if the surface was destroyed. Ryan coordinated the defense teams while Jake watched the alien ships position themselves around the planet. The enemy was taking their time and seemed confident that the humans posed no real threat. That arrogance might be their only advantage. The first alien attack came without warning. Brilliant green beams lanced down from orbit, striking the colony shields. The protective barriers held for 30 seconds before collapsing under the sustained assault. Emergency power kicked in, but Jake knew it would not last long. Lisa worked desperately at her station, trying to send warning messages to other human settlements. If New Boston fell, other colonies needed to know what was coming. The aliens seemed to have superior technology and numbers. This was not a random attack, but a coordinated campaign to wipe out humanity. The second wave of attacks targeted the colony directly. Buildings exploded in balls of fire as alien weapons tore through metal and concrete like paper. The residential sectors where families lived just hours ago became smoking ruins. Jake watched people he had known for years running toward the tunnel. Entrances carrying children and elderly relatives. Ryan reported over the radio that defensive positions were taking heavy casualties. The alien weapons were more advanced than anything humans had faced before. Their own energy weapons barely scratched the enemy ships, while the aliens could destroy entire buildings with single shots. Jake made the hardest decision of his life. He activated the colony evacuation protocol. All remaining civilians and non-essential personnel would evacuate through the mining tunnels while the defense teams covered their retreat. He would stay behind with volunteers to buy as much time as possible. Lisa refused to leave her post. She continued sending distress signals and downloading critical data that might help other human colonies survive. Her dedication inspired others to stay and fight, even though they knew the battle was hopeless. The alien ships moved closer to the surface, beginning their final assault. Jake looked around the command center at the brave men and women who had chosen to stay. They were miners and engineers, not soldiers, but they were willing to die protecting their friends and families. Outside the windows, New Boston Colony burned. The aliens were methodical in their destruction, leaving nothing standing. But in the tunnels below, 30,000 people were escaping into the deep mining networks. The aliens thought they were killing everyone, but they were wrong, as the command center shook under alien fire. Jake smiled grimly. The aliens had made their first mistake. They did not understand humans at all. 6 months had passed since the aliens destroyed New Boston Colony. Captain Ryan Blake crouched in the darkness of an abandoned mining shaft, listening to the sounds of alien patrol ships flying overhead. The Valdari, as they called themselves, believed they had killed all the humans on this world. They were wrong. Ryan led a group of 40 survivors who had made their home in the deep tunnel networks beneath Haven Prime. The mining companies had dug these tunnels decades ago, searching for rare metals. Now they served as highways for human resistance fighters moving unseen beneath the alien occupation. Amy Carter checked her modified energy rifle for the 3rd time. The young lieutenant had lost her entire family in the first attack, but refused to give up fighting. She had become one of the best snipers in the resistance, using salvaged alien weapons that she had learned to modify with spare parts. The plan tonight was simple. A Valdari supply convoy would pass through the valley above their position. The aliens had grown careless over the months, thinking all humans were dead. They would learn otherwise. Pete Johnson worked quietly on a set of explosive charges made from mining equipment and alien power cells. The former engineer had an amazing talent for creating weapons from whatever materials they could find. His improvised bombs had destroyed 6 alien supply depots in the past month. Ryan spoke quietly into his radio. All teams report status. Around the valley floor, 12 other groups of human survivors waited in hidden positions. They had planned this attack for weeks, studying alien patrol patterns and supply schedules. Amy positioned herself on a rocky ledge with clear sight lines to the convoy route. Through her scope, she could see the alien vehicles approaching in the distance. The Valdari moved in perfect formation, never deviating from their planned routes. Their predictability would be their downfall. Dr. Lisa Morgan worked from a hidden laboratory deep in an asteroid field outside the system. She had survived the destruction of her research ship by hiding in an escape pod for 3 days. Now she studied captured Valdari technology, trying to find weaknesses the resistance could exploit. Her latest discovery was promising. Valdari equipment used quantum resonance patterns that could be disrupted by modified human neural implants. The technology was complex, but she believed it could give human fighters a significant advantage. The convoy consisted of 6 heavily armored transport vehicles escorted by 4 attack ships. The Valdari inside wore environmental suits that made them look like walking nightmares. They had destroyed human colonies without mercy and deserved no mercy in return. Ryan gave the signal. Pete triggered his explosives at the front and rear of the convoy, creating a kill zone. The alien vehicles stopped suddenly as their drivers tried to understand what was happening. In that moment of confusion, The human attack began. Energy bolts flashed through the darkness as resistance fighters opened fire from concealed positions. The Valdari were caught completely off guard. They had grown used to easy victories against helpless civilians and were not prepared for organized military resistance. Amy picked off alien soldiers with precise shots as they tried to exit their damaged vehicles. Her modified rifle could punch through Valdari armor at long range. Each shot was carefully aimed and rarely missed its target. The aliens tried to call for help, but Pete had sabotaged their communication equipment with a device Dr. Morgan had designed. The Valdari garrison would not know about the attack until morning patrols found the wreckage. Within minutes, the convoy was destroyed and the aliens were dead. The humans quickly gathered weapons ammunition and supplies before disappearing back into the tunnel networks. By dawn, they would be miles away planning their next attack. Similar attacks were happening across 12 different worlds where human survivors had gone underground. The Valdari believed they had achieved 94% extinction efficiency, but thousands of humans remained hidden in places the aliens never thought to look. On the research vessel Aurora, hidden in a nebula cloud, engineer Carol Davis worked with a team of survivors to modify captured alien ships. They had learned to combine human creativity with Valdari technology, creating hybrid vessels that could strike without warning. The aliens ruled through fear and overwhelming force, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity. Humans adapted quickly, learned from their mistakes, and never gave up fighting no matter how desperate the situation became. Dr. Morgan transmitted her latest research findings to resistance cells throughout the occupied territories. The neural disruptor technology was ready for field testing. Soon human fighters would have weapons that could turn Valdari advantages against them. In the deep tunnels beneath Haven Prime, Ryan Blake studied intelligence reports from other resistance groups. The aliens were becoming frustrated as their mopping up operations met increasing resistance. Valdari commanders were requesting additional troops and questioning their initial casualty estimates. Amy cleaned her rifle and prepared for the next mission. Tomorrow, they would attack a Valdari research facility and capture more technology for Dr. Morgan to study. Each successful raid made the resistance stronger and the aliens more nervous. The Valdari had expected to finish their genocide within months, but human survivors refused to die quietly. Hidden in tunnels, abandoned mines, and asteroid bases, they built weapons, planned attacks, and slowly turned the tide of war. Pete worked on a new type of bomb using Valdari power cores and human explosives. The device would be powerful enough to destroy an entire alien base. The resistance was no longer just trying to survive, they were preparing to fight back with everything they had. Ryan looked around at his team of fighters. 6 months ago, they had been miners, engineers, and shopkeepers living peaceful lives. Now they were guerrilla warriors, striking fear into an alien empire that had never known defeat. The Valdari had made a critical mistake when they tried to exterminate humanity. They thought killing most humans would end the threat, but instead they had created an enemy with nothing left to lose. The survivors would never stop fighting until every alien invader was dead or driven away as the resistance fighters settled. Down to rest in their underground hideout, Ryan smiled grimly. The aliens believed they were the hunters, but soon they would learn the truth. Humanity had become something far more dangerous than the Valdari could imagine. 1 year after the Valdari first attacked human colonies, Dr. Lisa Morgan stood in her hidden laboratory studying the most important discovery of her career. The alien command ship they had captured contained complete tactical databases and technology, blueprints that would change everything. Captain Ryan Blake had led the raid that captured the ship. His team had used Dr. Morgan's neural disruptors to incapacitate the Valdari crew without damaging any equipment. For the first time, humans had access to intact alien technology and strategic information. Kevin Torres was the resistance weapons specialist who worked with Dr. Morgan to reverse engineer Valdari systems. The former security officer had an intuitive understanding of alien technology that amazed even the scientists. Together, they were developing hybrid weapons that combined human innovation with alien power. The captured databases revealed shocking information about the Valdari Collective. They had used the same extinction protocols against dozens of other species over thousands of years. The aliens were not just invaders, they were serial genociders who had perfected the art of wiping out entire civilizations. Ryan studied the tactical information while planning the next phase of resistance operations. The Valdari followed rigid military doctrines that had not changed in centuries. They expected enemies to fight in predictable ways and could not adapt when faced with human unpredictability. Engineer Carol Davis led a team of survivors in building new spacecraft using stolen Valdari technology. The hybrid ships looked like alien vessels but incorporated human modifications that made them faster, more agile, and nearly impossible to track. Her latest creation was a stealth fighter that could approach Valdari ships undetected. The vessel used human computer systems to control alien weapons, creating combinations the enemy had never encountered. Test flights showed the ship could outmaneuver anything in the Valdari fleet. Dr. Morgan made another breakthrough when she discovered how Valdari communication systems worked. The aliens used quantum entanglement networks that could be monitored and even hijacked with the right equipment. Human intelligence operations would never be the same. Amy Carter had been promoted to major and now led special operations teams throughout the occupied territories. Her soldiers used captured alien weapons and Dr. Morgan's neural disruptors to conduct raids deep behind enemy lines. The Valdari were learning to fear human commandos who struck without warning. The resistance discovered that many species enslaved by the Valdari were eager to rebel, but lacked the technology and organization to fight back. Humans began making contact with these oppressed civilizations, sharing weapons and tactical knowledge on the former mining world of Titan Base. Engineer Pete Johnson worked with alien refugees to establish a secret weapons factory. The facility used Valdari manufacturing equipment to mass-produce human-designed weapons. Soon, resistance fighters throughout the galaxy would have access to advanced armaments. The aliens were beginning to realize that their genocide had failed catastrophically. Valdari commanders reported increasing losses and mysterious attacks that seemed to come from nowhere. Human raiders would strike supply convoys, destroy bases, and vanish before reinforcements could arrive. Carol Davis completed construction of her first hybrid battleship. The vessel was twice the size of human destroyers, but incorporated alien shield technology and weapon systems. More importantly, it was crewed entirely by humans who thought and fought in ways the Valdari could not predict. Dr. Morgan's research team made contact with the Zalani, a species that had resisted Valdari conquest for 50 years. The reptilian aliens shared crucial intelligence about Valdari weaknesses and military strategies. An alliance began forming between humanity and other resistant species. Kevin Torres field tested the first batch of neural disruptor rifles during a raid on a Valdari garrison. The weapons could incapacitate entire squads of alien soldiers instantly without permanent harm. This allowed humans to capture more equipment and gather intelligence from prisoners. The Valdari Collective called emergency sessions as reports filtered in from occupied territories. The species they had marked for extinction was not only surviving, but actively threatening their empire. Worse, the humans were inspiring other enslaved species to rebellion. Ryan Blake coordinated attacks across 6 different star systems simultaneously. Human raiders struck Valdari installations, while alien allies created diversions and provided intelligence. The carefully synchronized assault demonstrated that the resistance had evolved into a sophisticated military organization. Amy Carter led a team that infiltrated a Valdari research facility and downloaded their complete genetic database. The information revealed which species the aliens planned to target next, and provided biological data that could be used to develop new weapons. The captured research showed that Valdari had been studying human genetics, trying to understand why. Their biological weapons had been less effective than expected. Human genetic diversity and adaptability made them much harder to exterminate than other species. Carol Davis launched her hybrid battleship on its first combat mission. The vessel approached a Valdari fleet using alien identification codes, then opened fire at point-blank range. The surprise attack destroyed 3 enemy ships before they could respond. Dr. Morgan established communication networks that connected human resistance cells with rebellious alien species throughout the occupied territories. The quantum entanglement technology allowed instant communication across vast distances, making coordinated operations possible. Pete Johnson's weapons factory began producing advanced combat suits that incorporated both human and alien technology. The armor could protect soldiers from Valdari energy weapons while providing enhanced strength and mobility for combat operations. The Resistance captured a Valdari admiral during a raid on a command station. Under questioning, the alien officer revealed that the collective was fracturing as member species questioned the wisdom of continuing the failed genocide campaign. Kevin Torres developed new ammunition types that could penetrate any known Valdari armor. The bullets used miniaturized versions of alien power cells to create devastating impact effects. Human infantry could now engage alien soldiers on equal terms. Amy Carter received reports from resistance cells throughout the galaxy. Human forces were no longer just surviving, they were winning battles and liberating enslaved populations. The tide of war was turning in ways no one had expected. The Valdari tried to develop countermeasures against human tactics, but found themselves always one step behind. Human creativity and willingness to break conventional rules made them impossible. To predict or counter effectively, Dr. Morgan realized that humanity had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had not only survived attempted genocide, but transformed it into an advantage. The aliens had created exactly what they feared most: a united and technologically advanced human civilization with nothing left to lose. Admiral Gary Nelson commanded the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled, as he watched Valdari ships flee from his advancing forces. 2 years had passed since the aliens tried to exterminate his species, and now the hunters had become the hunted. The flagship Liberty was a marvel of hybrid engineering that combined human innovation with captured alien technology. Carol Davis had designed the massive vessel to be both a command ship and a symbol of human resilience. Its weapons could destroy entire Valdari squadrons with single volleys. Nancy Webb coordinated intelligence operations from a secure facility hidden in an asteroid field. The former corporate executive had proven remarkably skilled at organizing spy networks that penetrated deep into Valdari territory. Her agents provided advance warning of enemy movements and identified high-value targets. Dr. Lisa Morgan's latest creation was a neural disruptor cannon that could incapacitate the crews of entire Valdari ships without damaging the vessels themselves. This technology allowed human forces to capture enemy fleets intact and rapidly expand their own naval power. Captain Kevin Torres led deep strike missions against Valdari research facilities using modified stealth ships that were invisible to alien sensors. His teams had captured advanced technologies that made human forces even more dangerous and unpredictable. The Valdari Collective faced a situation unlike anything in their 1,000-year history. Emergency sessions convened as their leaders struggled to understand how their perfect genocide had failed so catastrophically. Reports from the front lines painted an increasingly desperate picture. Admiral Nelson studied tactical displays showing human forces advancing on 3 fronts simultaneously. His ships moved through space like hungry wolves hunting scattered prey. The Valdari formations that once seemed invincible now scattered in panic when human vessels appeared. Major Amy Carter had been promoted to colonel and now commanded Special Forces operations throughout the occupied territories. Her soldiers struck at Valdari installations with surgical precision, using weapons and tactics the aliens could not counter. The Resistance had evolved into a sophisticated military organization with support from dozens of liberated alien species. Former slaves fought alongside human forces eager for revenge against their Valdari oppressors. Engineer Pete Johnson worked with alien allies to establish weapons factories on liberated worlds. The facilities produced advanced armaments using hybrid human-alien technology that gave coalition forces significant advantages in combat. Nancy Webb's intelligence networks discovered that entire Valdari garrisons were abandoning their posts rather than face human attacks. The psychological impact of constant defeats was destroying alien morale throughout their empire. Dr. Morgan's research teams made another breakthrough when they developed weapons capable of disrupting Valdari quantum communication networks. This technology could isolate enemy fleets and prevent them from calling for reinforcements during battles. The hybrid warships built by Carol Davis had proven themselves in dozens of engagements. Human vessels could operate in ways the Valdari never anticipated, making them nearly impossible to track or counter effectively. Admiral Nelson received reports that Valdari colonies were requesting evacuation as human forces advanced deeper into alien territory. The species that had once confidently planned human extinction now lived in terror of human retaliation. Colonel Carter led a raid on a Valdari command center that controlled 6 star systems. Her team used neural disruptors to capture the facility. Intact, providing access to strategic databases and military codes, the captured information revealed that the Valdari collective was fragmenting as member species questioned their leadership. Some alien civilizations had begun secret negotiations with human representatives seeking separate peace agreements. Kevin Torres discovered abandoned Valdari research stations containing weapons that had been designed specifically to fight humans. The irony was not lost on him as his teams reverse-engineered the technology and turned it against its creators. Pete Johnson's latest creation was a mobile weapons platform that could be deployed on any world in hours. The system used modular components that could be reconfigured for different tactical situations, making human forces incredibly flexible. Dr. Morgan established research partnerships with liberated alien species who contributed their own scientific knowledge to the war effort. The collaboration produced breakthrough technologies that neither humans nor aliens could have developed alone. Nancy Webb's agents infiltrated Valdari government meetings and discovered that their leaders were considering desperate measures, including the use of planet-killing weapons. This intelligence allowed human forces to preempt several devastating attacks. Admiral Nelson launched Operation Retribution, a coordinated assault on 12 Valdari strongholds simultaneously. The attacks were timed to prevent enemy forces from supporting each other and demonstrated the growing reach of human military power. Carol Davis completed construction of the first human-built dreadnought using entirely captured alien technology. The massive vessel was more powerful than anything in the Valdari fleet and served as proof that humanity had surpassed their former oppressors. The Valdari military attempted to develop new tactics to counter human unpredictability, but found themselves always reacting to threats they could not anticipate. Human creativity and adaptability made conventional military planning useless. Colonel Carter received surrender offers from Valdari commanders who preferred capture to death at human hands. The aliens had learned that humans could be merciful to those who surrendered but showed no mercy to those who continued fighting. Kevin Torres led the assault on Valdari Prime, the capital world of the alien collective. The symbolic victory would demonstrate to the galaxy that humanity had not only survived attempted genocide, but emerged stronger than ever. Dr. Morgan worked with alien scientists to develop rehabilitation programs for captured Valdari soldiers. She believed that even their enemies could be reformed and integrated into the new galactic order that was emerging. The war had transformed humanity from victims into liberators. Human forces fought not just for survival, but for the freedom of all oppressed species throughout the galaxy. They had become exactly what the Valdari had feared. Most Admiral Nelson looked out at his expanding fleet and smiled grimly. The aliens had tried to erase humanity from existence, but instead created something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. The nightmare had only just begun. General Patricia Stone stood in the command center of New Terra, watching holographic displays that showed liberation forces advancing across 30 star systems simultaneously. 3 years after the Valdari attempted genocide humanity now led, a coalition of 12 species in open rebellion against the alien collective. The war had spread far beyond its original scope as oppressed civilizations throughout the galaxy rose up against their Valdari overlords. Human tactical doctrines and hybrid technologies had been adapted by coalition partners, creating a diverse and unpredictable enemy that the aliens could not understand. Admiral Gary Nelson commanded the largest fleet in galactic history as his ships moved toward Valdari Prime. The hybrid vessels combined human innovation with technologies from a dozen different species, creating combinations that the enemy had never encountered. Colonel Amy Carter coordinated ground operations on 6 different worlds where coalition forces were liberating Valdari labor camps. Her soldiers fought alongside alien allies who had been enslaved for generations and were eager for revenge against their oppressors. The Valdari collective attempted to negotiate offering to restore human colonies in exchange for peace. However, humanity had learned too much about alien atrocities against other species to accept anything less than complete victory and the dismantling of the oppressive empire. Dr. Lisa Morgan led a multi-species research team that had developed weapons capable of neutralizing entire Valdari fleets without destroying the ships. The technology used quantum resonance patterns to overload alien neural systems, rendering their crews unconscious instantly. Engineer Carol Davis worked with alien scientists to design liberation ships that could transport freed slaves back to their homeworlds. The vessels incorporated medical facilities and rehabilitation centers to help traumatized populations recover from decades of oppression. Nancy Webb's intelligence networks had penetrated every level of Valdari society, providing detailed information about enemy plans and weaknesses. Her agents included humans and liberated aliens who worked together to gather crucial intelligence. The coalition forces used tactics that the Valdari could not counter because they broke every conventional rule of warfare. Human creativity combined with alien knowledge created strategic approaches that seemed to come from nowhere. Captain Kevin Torres led the assault on the Valdari Military Academy, where their officers were trained. The symbolic attack demonstrated that humanity was not content with mere survival, but intended to destroy the foundations of alien military power. Pete Johnson's weapons factories on liberated worlds produced advanced armaments for coalition forces. The hybrid weapons used technologies from multiple species, creating effects that the Valdari had never seen and could not defend against. Dr. Morgan's research revealed that the Valdari Empire was held together by fear and technological superiority. As coalition forces captured alien technology and proved that the collective could be defeated, their subject species began demanding freedom. General Stone received surrender offers from entire Valdari fleets, whose crews preferred imprisonment to certain death. The aliens had discovered that humans could be merciful to those who surrendered, but were ruthless toward those who continued fighting. The battle for Valdari Prime became a symbol of resistance as live broadcasts reached oppressed populations throughout the galaxy. Billions of enslaved beings watched human-led forces assault the capital of their oppressors. Admiral Nelson's fleet encountered massive orbital defenses around the Valdari homeworld, but the alien weapons proved ineffective against hybrid shields and armor. Human ships moved through the defensive network like sharks through a school of fish. Colonel Carter led the ground assault on the Valdari government complex, while her soldiers fought alongside representatives from every species, the part aliens had oppressed. The diverse coalition demonstrated that the old empire was truly finished. The Valdari leadership realized that their 1,000-year reign was ending as reports arrived of rebellions on every world they controlled. The species they had once ruled, through terror, were now united against them under human leadership. Dr. Morgan worked frantically to develop non-lethal weapons for the final assault. She believed that even their enemies deserved a chance at redemption and rehabilitation rather than simple extermination. Carol Davis designed transport ships to evacuate Valdari civilians who had no part in their government's crimes. The coalition would not repeat the mistakes of their enemies by targeting innocent populations. Kevin Torres captured the Valdari Supreme Commander during the assault on the government complex. The alien leader seemed unable to comprehend how his species had fallen so far so quickly. Nancy Webb coordinated with alien resistance groups to establish temporary governments on liberated worlds. The coalition was not just destroying the old order, but building something better to replace it. The Valdari military made a final desperate attempt to use planet-killing weapons against coalition forces. However, Dr. Morgan's quantum disruption technology disabled the weapons before they could be fired. General Stone accepted the formal surrender of the Valdari Collective as representatives from dozens of species witnessed the historic moment. The empire that had oppressed the galaxy for 1,000 years was finally ended. Admiral Nelson established humanitarian corridors to allow Valdari civilians to evacuate to neutral worlds. The coalition would not pursue revenge against innocent populations, despite the crimes of their leaders. The war crimes tribunals began immediately, as evidence of Valdari atrocities was presented to representatives from every species in the galaxy. The trials would ensure that such genocidal campaigns could never happen again. Dr. Morgan announced the establishment of the Galactic Research Institute, dedicated to developing technologies for peaceful exploration rather than conquest. The new organization would include scientists from every liberated species. Carol Davis began designing colony ships to help displaced populations establish new homes on worlds of their choosing. The post-war galaxy would be based on cooperation and voluntary association rather than conquest and oppression. The coalition had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had not only defeated a genocidal empire, but created a new order based on freedom and mutual respect between species. General Stone looked out at the liberated galaxy and reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. Humanity had been marked for extinction, but instead became the liberators of countless oppressed civilizations. The Valdari had made the greatest mistake in their history when they underestimated human resilience and determination. They tried to erase humanity from existence, but created something far more dangerous than they ever imagined. President Andy Cooper stood before the Galactic Assembly addressing representatives from 47 species as he outlined the charter for the new Federation. 5 years had passed since the Valdari attempted human extinction, and the galaxy had been transformed beyond recognition. Fleet Admiral Karen Ross commanded exploration fleets that ventured into uncharted regions of space, carrying mixed crews of humans and aliens working together. The ships were designed for discovery rather than conquest, representing humanity's commitment to peaceful expansion. The irony was not lost on human leaders that the aliens' attempt to eliminate humanity as a threat had created exactly what they feared. A human-led civilization now dominated the local galactic arm and challenged the old order throughout known space. Dr. Lisa Morgan's Galactic Research Institute had become the premier scientific organization in the galaxy. Her laboratories on New Terra worked with researchers from dozens of species developing technologies that benefited everyone rather than serving military purposes. War crimes tribunals had processed most Valdari leadership while rehabilitation programs attempted to integrate their species into the new Federation. Some Valdari colonies led by progressive scientists like Zeth Kara embraced the changes and joined the alliance willingly. Engineer Carol Davis designed the new generation of exploration vessels that could travel farther and faster than any ships in history. The hybrid technology incorporated innovations from every member species, creating capabilities that exceeded anything the old empires had achieved. Former Colonel Amy Carter now served as Director of Peacekeeping Operations, ensuring that the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. Her forces included veterans from every liberated species who were committed to protecting freedom throughout the galaxy. The rehabilitation programs developed by Dr. Morgan had proven remarkably successful with former Valdari soldiers. Many aliens, who had once participated in genocide, now worked alongside their former enemies to build a better future. Admiral Ross launched the first deep space exploration mission beyond the galactic rim. The fleet included representatives from 20 different species, all working together to expand the boundaries of known space. President Cooper reflected on how dramatically the situation had changed since the dark days when humanity faced extinction. The species that was meant to be erased had instead become the foundation for a new galactic civilization. Nancy Webb now directed the Federation Intelligence Service, which monitored the galaxy for signs of new threats while protecting the rights of all member species. Her networks included former enemies who had chosen cooperation over continued conflict. The former Valdari territories had been reorganized into autonomous regions where each species could govern itself according to its own traditions. The Federation provided protection and support, but did not impose human values on unwilling populations. Engineer Pete Johnson established technical colleges throughout the galaxy, where beings from different species learned to work with hybrid technologies. The schools represented humanity's commitment to sharing knowledge rather than hoarding advantages. Dr. Morgan's research teams made breakthrough discoveries almost monthly, as scientists from different species shared their unique perspectives. The collaboration produced innovations that no single civilization could have achieved alone. The galaxy had learned that diversity was strength rather than weakness. The Valdari Empire's rigid hierarchy and enforced conformity had made it brittle, while the Federation's flexibility and adaptability made it nearly unbreakable. Admiral Ross received reports from exploration fleets, discovering new civilizations in distant star systems. The Federation's policy was to make peaceful contact and offer alliance rather than demanding submission. Some former Valdari worlds struggled with the transition to freedom, but most had embraced their liberation. Entire species that had been enslaved for generations were rediscovering their own cultures and identities. President Cooper announced plans for the construction of New Haven, a massive space station that would serve as the federal capital. The facility would be built with contributions from every member species, demonstrating their unity. Carol Davis worked on designs for generation ships that could carry mixed crews on journeys lasting centuries. The vessels would establish new colonies in distant galaxies, ensuring that the Federation's ideals would spread throughout the universe. The war crimes trials had revealed the full extent of Valdari atrocities, but also demonstrated the Federation's commitment to justice rather than revenge. Even the worst criminals received fair trials and opportunities for rehabilitation. Dr. Morgan established educational exchange programs that allowed young beings from different species to study together. The programs were creating a new generation that thought of themselves as galactic citizens rather than members of separate species. Admiral Ross encountered the first signs of another ancient empire in the distant Andromeda galaxy. The Discovery raised questions about whether humanity would face new challenges in the future. The Federation military remained strong but focused on defense rather than conquest. Human tactical innovations had been adapted by all member species, creating a force that could defend freedom against any threat. President Cooper visited former Valdari colonies where mixed populations of humans and aliens worked together to rebuild their worlds. The cooperation demonstrated that former enemies could become trusted allies. Nancy Webb's intelligence services discovered evidence of other species in distant galaxies that had survived attempted genocides by various empires. The Federation began planning contact missions to offer support and alliance. The transformation was complete. Humanity had evolved from victims to protectors and from refugees to leaders. The species that had faced extinction now stood as guardians of freedom for countless civilizations. Carol Davis launched the first intergalactic colony ship, carrying volunteers from 30 species to establish a new home in the Magellanic Clouds. The mission represented the Federation's commitment to expansion through cooperation rather than conquest. Dr. Morgan reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. The Valdari's attempt at genocide had backfired spectacularly, creating something far more dangerous to oppressive empires than isolated human colonies. Admiral Ross looked out at the expanding Federation and smiled. The exploration fleets would carry human ideals of freedom and cooperation to distant stars, ensuring that the nightmare of oppressive empires would end forever. The final irony was that the Valdari had been right to fear humanity, not because humans were naturally aggressive or expansionist, but because they refused to accept that any species should live in slavery, or fear. President Cooper closed his address to the Galactic Assembly with words that would be remembered throughout history. The aliens tried to erase us from existence, but we became their nightmare. Now we ensure that freedom will be the nightmare of every tyrant in the universe.